morning. I'm going to play a song at the end. I'll end with a song. Our playlist got jumbled since we threw in Lion at the beginning. I picked 3 random songs because they were at the top of an old school playlist, and I just wanted to hear them. So we're going to listen to a song at the end. It actually fits pretty well, and kind of like some response time and some prayer time. It's called "Your Presence Is Heaven to Me." It's just been a while since I've worshiped to it. So, hi, my name is Paige. Welcome to my social experiment where the Lord is trying to rid me of all control. You guys like that? Is that fun for you too? I am a recovering control freak. This year has been neat. Okay, let me look at the calendar. Oh man, the way, I just have to be honest. This is who I am. And all transparency, you guys already know, so it's just like my soapbox for 1 second. I just control feels good, okay? I prefer it. Letting the Lord have his way and do his thing, and take his time on doing his thing is not always so fun. So I am releasing and surrendering that on a regular basis. Okay, couple quick announcements, or just housekeeping, family, House of Freedom family stuff. So Mama Maxine, we are all praying for her. She is recovering. We did send her flowers and cookies. And when I say we, I mean we. So we sent her flowers and cookies that got there on Friday. She said they were perfect bite size for her to, snack on. So we are praying for her recovery. And we're sure she'll be back in here and, strong and keeping us all in line soon. So probably stronger, So and then Will and Jen had their baby. Her name is Azariah. I was saying it wrong until we got there. I was saying Azaria, so it's Azariah. And she is absolutely gorgeous, and we got the chance to meet her. And so just wanted you guys to keep them in your prayers. They are first-time parents, and they are figuring it out. But they're doing a great job, and they seem so confident, and so that's exciting. Why do I feel like I'm missing something? We got people traveling or afraid of the cold today. So, but if you want to give, as always, the buckets are right there. The QR code is right there. And God blesses those who sow into his kingdom. And there's rules and there's laws that apply to that. And you guys know them, right? And so we give, we're giving people, we have hearts to give. This house is taken care of. You're looking at me like you need to say something. What? I'm getting to that. My calendar is up. Jesus. I just want to pray right now. So this house is taken care of so well. God has provided so well. And he is blessing obedience on, I believe, my husband and I's part, but on anybody's part who's here and who's sowing into this ministry. And it allows for cool things. Like I said, for Awaken the Bride coming up, that's a pretty cool part of being able to be a part of this house, and just to be honestly, for this house to be taken care of is to be able to do events like that. Before, when I would do events, the biggest piece of overhead was the venue, the space that I had the event at, and so for this to be able to just be utilized, that's going to be awesome. So quick calendar, and then I'll get into my message. So next Sunday is Communion and Community, and we are catering that for you guys. We'll get back to doing the potluck style, but for now, this is what we want to do. Mike feels bad for getting you guys pizza. I don't know why. I like pizza, but for whatever reason, he feels bad. So we're potentially catering Peachtree, but that has to be locked in. and Mike has to do his job of locking that in. So put a reminder in your calendar. And then the following week is the week before my event. And so I have no idea what that service is going to look like. But I'm probably going to go to what I've kind of been wanting to do for a while, which is like instrumental worship set and just pray. I would like for us all to be in prayer together for that event. If you're a woman, I would love for you to come to the event and be a part, because I would love for you to see this house flowing and filled, and the people that are going to be speaking and sharing and the topics that we're sharing on is going to be absolutely powerful. I've got people flying in from so many different places in the country, from Chicago, from California, from Texas. And so I think for me, it's going to be like a really a kickoff for me in this ministry. And the reason why I say that is because it's easier for me, just to be honest, this is going to be like maybe too transparent, but it's easier for me to get people to fly in than to come 20 minutes to be at a church service. So that just points to what the Lord is doing and what's going to happen in this house in the future. But like there's something that needs to be broken through. So like I'm a visionary and I'm prophetic, but I like to share the vision so you guys understand, and that's part of the reason why we're doing this, because this house is going to be a beacon of hope and light and love. And I first got to break out of the kind of the restraints of the familiar and the suffocating voices of what was surrounding me and keeping me kind of muzzled and quiet for a really long time. So the Lord is doing that. The Lord is breaking that, and He's releasing me. He's releasing Mike. He's encouraging us. He's equipping us. He's growing us right now. And so I just think, like, for me, it's going to be vision for me. And so I think you guys would be really encouraged to see this place and to see that event, see me kind of operating in my fullness and just in so much joy. I love those types of events. So it's a retreat and it's the Saturday event. And you can do the whole thing, or you can just do the Saturday event. The retreat is I'm probably going to close down the sale for the retreat this week, maybe even tomorrow, just because I feel kind of like I want to. I also thought about shutting down the tickets for the event altogether so that I can just pray over the people that are going to be there, because I don't need it to be a ton of people. I just need it to be the right people in the room, and we know what God is going to accomplish, and the right people are going to be in there. But I'll keep it going for a little bit longer. I've got some people from the House of Freedom that still need to get their tickets. So like I said, if you want to get your ticket, please reach out to me, because there's a discount code for the House of Freedom for you to be getting 50% off. And I don't want you guys buying full price tickets. So Saturday event is going from 11 to 7, and there is a break in there for dinner that is catered. So that's part of your ticket price and your art materials for our prophetic art session. Cool. I got through it all, I think. Okay. All right. Now, I got to put my glasses on. So annoying. Okay. This message is something that I've lived out in my life for sure. I guess it's going to be more like a teaching. I think that's just kind of how I am sometimes. But I've lived this, and I've walked through this, and I just felt like it was over the last couple weeks. I wrote half of it, I think like 4 weeks ago, and then I just finished it up and allowed the Holy Spirit to guide me. And the topic of today is the invitation of isolation. Has anybody felt like they've gone through a season of isolation with God? Is that it? No one? Anybody feel like maybe they're in one now? Me. Okay. So this is something that I feel like we all as believers should know and understand. One of the things that I can get, one of the things that I like to activate in people is biblical stories and the understanding and the reality that we are supposed to be living these things out. Like, this is supposed to be living and active in our life. It's not just a fable. It's not just a story. It's not about all these ancient stories of the past. They become living and active in your life when you're following the call and the will of God in your life. So if you're reading the Bible and it feels like you're not relating a ton, or if it feels like it's, far off in the past and you can't relate to it, the only reason it's not becoming living and active to you right now in the moment might be because you're currently not following the path that you need to be following on. Because when you're following the path of God and the call of God in your life, then these principles and these truths become really living and active for you. So you can be reading things and like, oh, I don't understand that. Or, I think sometimes, and I get a little nervous about some of the messages that I want to share for Christians, because I like to be that voice that validates and lets people know that they're not alone. And I feel like sometimes it comes off like, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on in the church or in Christians. I'm like, yeah. I don't know if you've read the Bible, but these people were doing some shady stuff, right? To themselves, to each other, to non-believers, to, like Jesus. Like, I don't know. Like, I think what they did to Jesus was pretty rude, So, like, I feel like we want all the good and we want all the love. And that's such a foundation of this house, is being able to talk about the love of God and the character of God. But I'm also not going to shy away from the stuff, right? And so isolation is one of the topics that I feel like keeps coming up. And it keeps coming up for me because I feel like a lot of people in the church or Christian communities will say things like, community is what we were created for. And it's their argument against isolation. So community is what we were created for. That's how God designed us, right? And you hear that, and for the people that are in isolation, they feel like, well, then what am I doing wrong, right? So this must be some form of punishment. And one of the things that I don't feel like is being done correctly is it being like differentiated, because there's self-led isolation, but then there's God-ordained isolation. But isolation stands as one of the most common and core biblical themes. So for it to be so commonly talked against is interesting, because if you read the Bible, you're going to walk through story after story after story after story of people going into isolation and God using it, or God specifically and strategically moving people into isolation for a season, but for a reason. So then we come to the point of, we want people to operate in community because that's what we're trying to build, the church, the community. But we're not teaching core biblical themes. Often we're actually teaching against them, which just creates confusion in the believer. We are created for community, but not the way it is today. Communities were small. Everybody knew each other. Everybody, we know what's going on in our lives, our families. We support each other. We love each other. Now we're just building really big buildings full of people that are strangers, full of people with competition, full of people with issues with each other, standing shoulder to shoulder, worshiping next to somebody you actually don't care for, and you're not united in heart and spirit with, which was the verse of the day. Be in harmony with each other, be united in heart and spirit, and we're building that. And then when people want to separate because they did have to spend 2 hours in church sitting next to someone who has belittled them or berated them or whatever the case may be, then we want to say things like, well, we were created for a community. But community is meant to be safe. Community is meant to be family. And then we're definitely forgetting that core biblical theme, which is what God does and how God uses seasons of isolation. In fact, there is not a strong biblical example which are the heroes that we follow in the Bible, that did not have to go through it. Not one. Okay? So there is a difference. There's this distinction that must be made. There is self-led isolation and there is God-ordained isolation. Self-led isolation is what they are referring to most of the time. When they say we are created for a community, that's how we're built up, that's how we're supposed to thrive, that's how we're supposed to live, that's what God designed, right? They're talking to the people that are self-led isolation, which is you're tired of hurting, you're sick of traumas happening to you over and over again. Things don't go your way, and you are generally going through something really difficult. And instead of asking for help or leaning into relationships, it feels a lot safer and easier to shut out the rest of the world. Maybe even in the past, when you tried to lean into others, you were disappointed. So once again, what would be interesting is if those people, that may not be the right response, correct? Because it's coming out of a place of pain. But instead of telling them from a distance that they were created for community and they probably shouldn't be isolating themselves, maybe we should go in that dark, cold place with them and minister to them until they feel so safe that they want to come and join us where we go. So instead of preaching against isolation, we should just help our brothers and sisters whom are isolated. Because the self-led isolation is most likely because others have harmed them so much. Let's not contribute to that. God-led isolation. This is when you are being led away or even circumstances lead you away, but he intends to use this season as preparation. It is not punishment. That is one of the most difficult things. When all of a sudden you find yourself in a season where your circle is a lot smaller, things that you thought you were going to be doing, you're no longer doing, areas that you thought you were, like in the biblical examples, I lived here for a time and then all of a sudden I'm led into a completely different land with a completely different body of people. And it feels like isolation at first because it's being isolated from what you knew. What you thought your life was going to look like, the people that you thought you were going to be surrounded by. And so that is what God-led isolation is. If you are in a God-led isolation period, there is something that he is doing in you. Something that your old self could not handle. He cannot pour old wine into new wine. He cannot pour new wine into old wineskin. You are likely being prepared at a distance because your circle couldn't help you, or they may have even tried to hinder you. So it's often like when we feel pulled back, that does not have to represent a bad thing. There are things that God sees and there are things that God knows that maybe we are not aware of. If he begins to pull you back from people, you need to understand that is most likely a protection, and it is most likely a preparation for something greater. One thing to understand is that there is often an illustration given about the enemy separating you from the pack so that you can be vulnerable and alone so that he can attack. Has anybody ever heard that? It's the illustration. The predator. He seeks to get you isolated and alone. And if you're isolated and alone, then you're weak. You're vulnerable. Especially if it's a predator that hunts in packs. Well, then you're outnumbered. Right? And so that's often used to teach people how dangerous it is to be isolated. It's almost as if they've never looked up any stories about predators using their prey that is surrounded. And actually, if you look it up, quite a few predators in the wild prefer to attack prey in packs. So while they are surrounded. Not every predator isolates you. Some surround you. and not with their hunting pack, with your own. Often, over and over in my life, God has used isolation to heal me. The enemy doesn't just isolate you. He will also surround you with people who are not for you, no matter what they say with their lips. When you are a target, but you are in the middle of a herd, the chatter is so loud around you that you cannot hear the enemy sneak up on you. And that is the benefit. You're surrounded by so much noise, so much confusion, so much chaos that you don't hear the ruffling in the grass as the enemy approaches. You don't hear the snarl before he leaps to bite. You're surrounded. You're in chaos. And the noise is too loud. What about the even more dangerous thing, in my opinion, is when you're surrounded by so much chaos and so much noise that you can't hear the voice of God. So sometimes it is actually necessary for God to separate you from the pack. The isolation period is an invitation into consecration and intimacy. So I'm going to give you some biblical examples, which basically you could just read the whole Bible and it would be an entire example of how many times people have been isolated, right? But I'll just go through the main ones and give you some bullet pointed facts. I am not going to give you scriptures based off of these. You can go look up the stories yourself if you need to be made familiar with them. But Moses, he was in the wilderness before the deliverance of his people. He spent 40 years tending to sheep in Midian. And he was one of those examples of he grew up in Egypt. And because of what happened, because of circumstances, he fled. And all of a sudden, he is isolated in a wilderness, surrounded by people that were not his original people, alone, having to rebuild his entire life, his identity, all of these things. And he spent 40 years in that place. People are worried about you needing a break for 2 weeks, man. Moses had to have 40 years to prepare himself for the drama, for the saga of his life. Elijah, he was hidden before power. He was in the brook of Cherith and fed by birds before moving into a widow's house in enemy territory. David, he was in obscurity before the throne. It was a shepherd's field at first, and then again later hiding in caves, fleeing from Saul. Joseph, he was in prison before his royal promotion, betrayed by his own family, enslaved and imprisoned. John the Baptist, wilderness before his voice arose in ministry. He lived in the desert. Jesus, wilderness before ministry. 40 days of fasting in the wilderness. Paul the Apostle, he was in Arabia before apostleship, spent time alone in Arabia after his conversion. Hagar, desert before the promise, alone in the wilderness. So most of these examples are wilderness, right? They got moved into wilderness. Wilderness is kind of the standout. It represents places that focus on that. It's a place that feels barren, dry, alone, quiet. It's places that feel like punishment. I'm sure David, he was a shepherd boy. I don't know if he liked that or didn't like that, but I'm sure he didn't like hiding in caves, fleeing from Saul, whom he had no intention to harm or to dethrone. I'm sure that didn't feel good. I'm sure Joseph didn't particularly love being enslaved and imprisoned. That wasn't necessarily cozy for him. I'm sure Jesus was just fine, Jesus is not worried about nothing. He's like, this is what I got to do, But everybody else, I'm sure in those moments, Elijah having to wait for a bird to feed him, Like, how much can you count on the birds, right? Like, yeah, the birds fed him, but you're sitting there waiting on a bird. That's an interesting place to be. These places feel like punishment, but they are in fact such a key, a pivotal moment in the story. So how to know when you are experiencing the invitation to isolation and it's a part of your divine intervention. These just came to me, so there's probably others. If I continued to work on this, I'm sure I would come up with more. But I just kind of used my own personal examples, and I looked over the biblical stories and kind of just like cross-referenced, and this is what I came up with. How to know when it's isolation is a divine intervention. Seasons where you feel like you're alone in a crowded room, you feel isolated already. And something deep in you is begging for more of that isolation. So being alone in a crowded room, the inside of you is begging for more isolation, because it's like, if I already feel this alone, then I might as well be alone. I'm going to come back to that. I have personal stories. Your gifts are increasing, but you struggle to understand them. Okay? What to do with them, how to use them, or maybe this: people around you are taking offense to those gifts, right? So all of a sudden your gifts are increasing, and you're like, whoa, this is cool, but you don't know how to use them, and you don't know what to do with them. And people want clarity. They want to know how to use these gifts, and so what they choose is to surround themselves with people that they think are going to help them cultivate these gifts, when in all reality, to grow your gifts, you need to get intimate with God. To learn how to use your gifts, you need to hear his voice a little bit better. So that isolation might be the trick. Or people are offended by those gifts. Tell me what happened to Joseph again. Oh, you had a dream? Excuse me? We were born before you. And your dream is that you will be elevated above us? Oh, you think you're special? Oh, no, that won't do. He was being beckoned into isolation for protection from people that misunderstood his gift, were offended by his gift, and wanted to harm him for his gift. At that moment, Joseph was thinking, to have dreams and to interpret dreams is a curse. I am cursed. And wouldn't he be right for saying that in that moment? The people he loved betrayed him, sold him into slavery, and then he was imprisoned. Being innocent, having done nothing wrong, wouldn't you too feel like your gift was a curse? How many people are sitting amongst us feeling the exact same way? Or how about this? You are betrayed by the people close to you, and presence no longer feels safe. You are surrounded, but not supported. You may be being asked to go into a season of isolation. Surrounded, not supported. The people around you might be dealing with jealousy, comparison, competition, or just you might just be experiencing a lack of care. Let me just reiterate this for you. If I've never said this in this house, this might be the first time, but I'll probably say it 1,000,000 times. There is no room for competition amongst the body of Christ. It is not God ordained. It is not godly. Competition is a spirit that is not birthed by God. If there is competition in your heart, it is not given to you by God. We are never meant to look at each other and feel competition. It's actually such a grievance to the Spirit of God that he shows up. It's the second story in the Bible of sin, competition. So Adam and Eve, they make their choices. Cain and Abel, though, it was competition. And it was so grieving, such a grievance, that the blood of Abel cried out from the ground. What an injustice to be competed with by your own brother. Abel could have probably used a season of isolation. Just know that not every time a heart is hardened, not every time when you're surrounded but not supported, hearts are hardened, and it's a bad thing. Sometimes God allows the hearts around you to be hardened because he needs you to shift. He is allowing it, and it will be okay. What about this? You're facing increased chatter or temptation that feels like it's out of nowhere. Right? So imagine Jesus. He's in the wilderness, and then the enemy shows up for that temptation period. To him, he's going to get through it. But it's out of nowhere. All of a sudden, this voice is here, and he's saying, "Well, do this. Prove yourself. Do that. Show how strong you are." So it's not just temptation to sin. It's temptation to prove. It's temptation to show who you are. It's temptation to do before God tells you to do. A lot of times when you're being pulled into an isolation season, it's just really easy to see. You're just experiencing a lot of mental chatter, a lot of doubt, a lot of confusion, a lot of fear. You're like, I really overcame a lot of this. I don't know why this is coming up again. It's probably because he's trying to pull you back into intimacy. Pull you back into the consecration because he's trying to increase something in you. He's allowing that because he wants you to pull back to him. Or that temptation that feels like it's out of nowhere. Once again, the temptations that you feel like, man, I have already overcome this. I haven't felt this in so long. This is so weird. I got rid of that approval addiction. I got rid of the need to people please. I got rid of that performance. I got rid of that lust. I got rid of that, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden it's popping up again. Sometimes instead of beating yourself up, you should pay attention to what God might be trying to do and what he's trying to allow for you to see and feel. The first response for most people is, this temptation popped up out of nowhere. I need to feel shame. And that's the opposite of the truth. You should be curious about what is happening and then move yourself into a position of isolation or intimacy with God, being alone with God, so that you can allow his grace to empower you and teach you through that season or through that lesson. Jesus even himself experienced temptation out of nowhere. He was perfect. He was in his wilderness. He was in the desert before his ministry. And then the enemy showed up and tempted him. So why are we being so self-condemned when we face temptation? That's just an invitation for you to prove you know who you are in God. So that is the how you know when you are experiencing the invitation to isolation. So let me just tell a couple stories because I feel like I don't want to go back to that and then I want to move on. So for me, I remember like growing up and kind of going through the high school years, and it was really annoying because I liked to be around people. I liked to have a good time, but the Lord was pursuing me, so that was annoying. I couldn't do nothing. I always got caught. Always got caught. I remember one time specifically, I was so mad at God. I can't even tell you, because I'm sitting at a party and all of a sudden I'm alone in a crowded room. I was having fun. Everybody was having fun. And all of a sudden God was like, you don't belong here. And I could just, it was like clear as day. And all of a sudden it went from, yay, we're enjoying this is fun, to like, I felt like, when you're in a, like you see in movies where all of a sudden it's just that background noise and it's blurred. And I'm just standing there like, okay. The feeling became so strong that I had to leave. And this was when, unfortunately, I got caught. So I pull over. I shouldn't have been driving. And so I pulled over because I knew it was wrong, because the Lord was on me. I'm like, why did you tell me to leave? I don't understand this. And I pull over into a school parking lot because I feel like that's safe, right? And I'm going to wait for somebody to come get me. And then the police show up. And I'm like, if I would have stayed at the party, this wouldn't be happening. And it felt like a punishment, but God was like, I know. If you would have stayed there, this wouldn't be happening. But do you know what would have happened if you did stay there? That's the part I'll never know. I remember a season of isolation after a breakup of somebody that I was like off and on with for pretty much 5 years. And it's when I finally knew. It's like I finally knew that I needed to sever myself from this relationship. It was abusive, and it was just not good. It was an unhealthy pattern. I could have kept trying. I could have kept fighting, but it could have been years and years and years and years down the road that I would have still been doing that. And so I had to make a conscious decision. I had to say, this is no longer for me. I can't live like this anymore. It's hurting me more. And that's what my mom would say. She's like, at first it's all good and it's all great, but if you get to a point where it's taking from you more than it's giving to you, or he's making you sad more often than he makes you happy, then you can no longer hold on to, oh, but he used to make me so happy. So when I made this decision, I remember the season of isolation that followed it. And it was really messed up, because like I am like the person that's like, I can just go kind of like pacify my time and kind of maybe like get into another relationship, or like start talking to some people to just like ignore all of this, or I could start going out more and, just, having more fun and doing all this. But like, it was like something in me knew I needed to like be alone. That was the season when my mom probably was really concerned, because I was playing Sinead O'Connor in my bedroom over and over and over and over and over and over again. You guys know the song, Nothing Compares to You? Just killing myself. Like, I felt like I needed to go through it, though. I was playing the song, another song, No Air by Jordan Sparks. I'm like, I can't breathe without you. But I was doing that to myself. Actually, just so you guys know, science shows that when you listen to sad songs, it's actually healing for you. So, Mike, when I need to go on a drive and listen to my sad songs, that's a part of the process. People are like, don't wallow in it. It's like, this is my healing. And then I found a song called Fix You by Coldplay. And it's because I liked Coldplay, so I was trying to pick another sad song. I stopped, like, the tears were no longer coming for those other two songs. They ran their course. So I'm like, let me pick another sad song. I really like this one song. We listened to it one time when we were together over here. So I'm like trying to find that song. And I saw Fix You. And I had heard it before, but I played it again. And all of a sudden, that was the song that did it. It was like all of the words were just hitting me. It was, you try your best, but you don't succeed. You get what you want, but not what you need. And it's like this, the only part that I didn't feel like if you could go listen to it, man, the only part that I didn't feel like aligned with the character of God was, I will try to fix you. He says, I will, light will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. And the only part that I just like heard differently was God saying, I will fix you. There was no trying about it. And at least I knew that. At least I knew enough about the character of my God that I knew that he was not going to try, that he was absolutely going to fix me. That season of isolation and listening to that song and listening to the voice of my Father and listening to the voice of God allowed me to go into a season of the next chapter of my life being completely unwilling to accept anything less than the love that I deserved. Now, I can't say this for anybody, and especially because this will go online and people might share it. I can't say if you listen to these 3 songs and you cry and you go into an isolation period, then as soon as you come out of it, you're going to get married. Because that's just not the truth for everyone. Just for me, I was being prepared. I was being retrained. I was being my eyes were being made new. Because quite frankly, and this is like he knows already, Mike was just not the usual type for me. I grew up with daddy issues. So I liked men that were very affirmative. Is that the right word? They were very charismatic and would tell me things about myself. They would build me up. They would give me affirmation. They would love bomb me. I was addicted to the love bombing, okay? So God used that season to completely rewire me and prepare me for what was best for me, for someone that would heal what he never broke. But it was like that rewiring had to happen because otherwise I wouldn't have survived. I wouldn't have survived the season of I like him, does he like me? Because it lasted like a year. And he wouldn't talk to me. So that was annoying. I was like, there's no way he likes me because I've known him for a year now and we've been friends. We talk socially or we talk on instant messenger about like what music we like and all of these things. And we talk a lot, but when I see him in person, he doesn't speak to me. He doesn't flirt with me. He doesn't compliment me. And so it was confusing. I'm like, I'm in the friend zone. He is not interested in me. Okay. So I would have, if I didn't have this intimacy with God and this alone time with God, and if I wasn't strong enough in God, then I would have not been patient enough to trust that process. I'll leave those 2 stories. I might share some things, but I feel like I've been through a decent amount of isolation periods, and they're all so holy, and they all represent so much. So let me just go over what they can do. What isolation is used for. It strips away distractions, clarifies your calling, strengthens your giftings, breaks down your pride. It's a huge one. Removes your sense of control. Don't I know it? It builds your trust, develops your faith. It protects you. It prepares your character for your calling. How many people have stepped into their calling, foregoing the isolation season, and so therefore their character is not prepared for what they're stepping into? How many leaders are in positions that their character is not qualified for? They themselves are qualified. They themselves have the calling on their life. They themselves have the anointing. But because they refuse seasons of isolation, their character is not qualified. And because of that, they're in positions with bad character and they're hurting people. He heals your wounds in those seasons. He purifies your heart. But most importantly, he develops intimacy with himself. He develops a relationship of intimacy with you. He shows you what it looks like to rely and depend on him and only him. He shows you what it feels like to be cared for, to be known, to be seen. He shows you what it feels like to get out of the rush and enter rest. He gives you this sense of, as long as I abide in him, everything will be okay. And there should truly be no Christian walking earth today thinking, what is going to happen here? How am I going to get out of this situation? How can this ever be good? These questions just point to a lack of intimacy with their Father. This may be hard, but I know for a fact that this will be for my good. I am hurting right now, and I am breaking right now, but I am not concerned, and I have no doubt that it will all be okay. I'm in the messy middle. I have to get through it, but I have a certainty because of my intimacy with Christ that this will be turned around for the good. It solidifies you in that certainness that God is in control, that He wants good for you, and that everything will be all right. It re-identifies us. It allows us to hear Him clearer. It helps us to know who He is. He becomes our one desire, our one companion, our everything. Why would that not be a desire from God? God is jealous for us. He's jealous. The Bible says that He's jealous. These things aren't put in there accidentally. What if your community is replacing Christ? You run to people and then you mention it to God. I wrestle through things with people. I do have a strong community that I've built around me. And I've created an inner circle that, like Casey was talking about last week, that I can be vulnerable with. But that does not replace my time with God. It doesn't replace my time with God. And it's not as productive. I have been given those people to be vulnerable with by God. So they can never replace Him. But how often today are people replacing godly things with God Himself? You're in an isolation period. Well, are you talking to God about it? Are you asking God about it? Are you pursuing God in it? Are you completely shut down? Because even in isolation periods, these people were utilized. Joseph was brought to the position that he was brought to because in the season of isolation, he was still willing to submit himself to the Lord. Which means when somebody came and said, the Pharaoh is having dreams that are plaguing him, he didn't say in that shut down place, no, because he had his heart still turned to God. He said, I can interpret them. And that is what brought him out of that and lifted him up to be second in the nation, to have the keys to the nation, to build wealth for himself and others, to come up with an economic system that still impresses economists today. Because he wasn't shut down in his isolation season. He had his heart turned to God. These moments are holy and they are divine. So as much as I would encourage you, I think we've got a good thing going here. We've got so much love in the room. I watch you guys embrace each other as you enter. It's so beautiful. I watch the people that have been here before us embrace the people that are new, love on their babies, love on their families. I watch us sit together and eat on communion community Sundays and we talk. It's not awkward. The kids are running around. So I think we've got the community thing going pretty well. That's good. My question is just, do you have the intimacy thing going as well? Do you have those moments of isolation where you are spending time with Jesus, and his presence is what fulfills you. His voice is what guides you. His love is what heals you. Do you have that same intimacy? I know for me, I just think it's so awesome. I think it's so wonderful that he takes seasons that feel like brokenness, barrenness, dry, desert, wilderness seasons, and that's where he brings the most fruitfulness from that place. I think it's wonderful. I think it's beautiful. For me, in the last year or so, maybe couple of years, I feel like God has been allowing my gifts to like increase to a level that have been hard to bear and have been hard to like to hold. And that was like kind of confusing at first, because this is like another layer of isolation. This isn't just like, oh, I had one and I moved on, or I had another and I moved on. Like, I'm being invited into a new layer of like intimacy with him. And so I'm, in rooms, and here's the thing. It's like, I'm the type of person that I was always empathetic. I was always a feeler. I was prophetic. I would have dreams. They would come to pass. Then it got to the point where I could feel everything. And I could hear the thoughts in the room. And I'm like, I'm crazy, right? Then the Bible's like, once again, how many times people breeze over when it says Jesus heard their thoughts? They just breeze over that because it's just a story to them. It's not living and active, but it was living and active in me. So the next time I read that and I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. He heard their thoughts. I hear their thoughts. I can hear their thoughts. I can hear their intentions towards me. I can hear it. Plain as day. I notice pitch. I notice tone. Well, that's different. That didn't sound quite right. I can feel the intentions. Messages preached like community with intentions behind it of control. I can feel all of that. So I have recently been pulled into isolation, and even more so now, and that is for my good. It is exciting to me because I need to feel safe. I need to feel protected. I want this to increase in me. I'm not scared of my gifts. I want it to increase, but I want it to be safe. I want it to be protected. I want it to be grown for the glory of God, and I don't need it to be something that is handed to the committee of they for them to tell me what I should do with it, or how I should use it, or if I should repress it or not, or if I'm being too sensitive or too dramatic, right? So I myself am being invited into a season where I just need to be more intimate with God. I need to be a little bit more careful of who I give myself to. I need to be a lot more intentional on the time I spend there. And I know for a fact that it will produce something good. So that's what I submit to you guys today. I submit to you to ask yourself, as much as you have community and as much as you fight for that and as much as you want that, how often are you being intimate with God? How often are you allowing seasons or periods or even just moments where it's just you and God and you're isolated so that he can do a work in you, something new in you? We can be Christians that just go through the motions, sure, but what good does that do? How many Christians are wondering why they don't feel like they're doing anything for the kingdom, but they haven't pulled themselves back into intimacy in so long? And everything is within us to add value in this room, in every room that we go into, but we're not tapping into that, and we're not being instructed by that because we're not being pulled into intimacy. And that is just what I want to leave you with. I want to leave you with that question. How much am I allowing space for isolation? Do I feel guilty about it? Do I have voices in my life that are telling me that that's not right? Do I have voices in my life that are telling me that it's better to be surrounded? Do I have that internal fear of what will happen if I get alone with God? Because no, it's not going to be 40 years in the wilderness. Okay? Like, God's not going to do that to you. Okay? I don't think, okay? Don't quote me on that. But yeah, I mean, he'll walk you through 7-year droughts. What was that and what is that in preparation for? If you survived the famine because you are willing to be intimate with God, what will it produce? So we're going to pray. I'm going to pray over you guys. I'm going to speak life into this topic, and I'm just going to encourage you, man. I don't care if I'm being countercultural. If I hear something that is not Bible, I'm going to speak to it. Isolation is a core theme. And if you want to be a hero in the kingdom, man, you better learn that isolation is a part of the process. Your refining is a part of the process. Your character being developed is a part of the process. Your control being removed, your pride being stamped out is a part of the process. You feeling betrayed by your brother is a part of the process. Does not feel good, produces good, because God is for you. Community comes out of healthy places of unity, harmony, and love. If that's not what you're experiencing, then you need to refine your circle. I just want to pray over this. I want to pray over this message. I want to pray over this word. Lord, I just ask that you help people know the difference. Help people know when they've been isolated by themselves, or maybe even potentially the enemy's been speaking to them, causing them to want to be isolated. Help them know and help them find places of safety. But my God, I just want you to instill in all of us that there is a need for us to be alone with you. There is a need for all of the voices to disappear, to be blurred out and drowned out in the distance. There is a need for us to be in places that feel dry and barren and empty. There is a need for us to have to rely on you so that the birds of the air feed us and the streams that you place us by are where we get our drink, and that you are our living water and you are the voice in our heads and you are the lamp into our feet. We need that, God. Help us to understand that we need that. Today in this world, we're connected so much with so many people. More people than we were ever meant to be connected with. We're meant to be in small communities, living in harmony and loving each other and being united in heart and spirit. And instead, we've got 1,000 people looking at our life and making commentary on social media, through our phones, through all of these outlets, God. And the noise has gotten to be too loud and the chatter has gotten to be too much. So people aren't developing their gifts, Jesus. People aren't hearing your calling. People aren't refining themselves. People's characters are not being refined. People are swelling up in pride. Oh, Lord, God, forgive us. Forgive us for forgetting that isolation was a part of the process. Forgive us for forgetting that this word is living and active and you're trying to invite us into intimacy with you. Forgive us for forgetting that a huge part of this story was making sure that the one thing is the one thing in our life. That before you do anything through us, God, we need to be set aside, set apart, and prepared with a heart posture that through and through, you are the answer. Through and through, you are our reward. You are our prize. You are our portion. You are our provider. You are our protection. Forgive us for surrounding ourselves with chattering voices. The committee of they that has been orchestrating our life, pulling strings, making decisions, and we've forgotten to ask your opinion. Lead us into a new season where if it's not your will, we don't want it. Lead us into a new season that if you don't go, we don't want to be there. Lead us into a new season that if you're not in the room, then we don't want to be either. Lead us into a new season, my God, where your voice matters above every other voice. Lead us into a new season where all we want is you, because everything of this world will fade away, and you are the one thing that really matters, Jesus. Lead us into a season where we submit ourselves to you and we give up and surrender anything that is not of you. Lead us into a season where we realize that if it doesn't matter in eternity, then it doesn't matter. Lead us into a season where we stop building sandcastles in our hearts and minds. Lead us into a season, my God, where we build your kingdom, and it is the only thing that matters to us. Let us feel that sweetness of your presence, because it is like heaven, where even moments of pain feel carefully and considerably a part of my process. Where betrayal feels like a lesson plan that you prepared for me. Willing to walk me through it, willing to teach me, willing to help me take the test over and over if I have to so I can pass it. That even the difficult times he can use for his good, if you will only choose to be intimate with him. If you will choose to release the need for control, if we can choose to let go of, I'm going to fix it. I have to make it right. I have to make better choices. I must have done something wrong. Jesus, just help us. Just help us rewire that. Help us rewire that and to lean into you, God. Help us all experience seasons of isolation that are productive for you. If nothing else, producing more intimacy with you. More friendship with you, Father. Just a little bit of a taste of what it was like in the garden when every day we showed up for a walk with you. If we are to be isolated, let it be that our relationship with you is strengthened. That we hear your voice clearly. That we feel your wind, your breath on us. That the sounds that fill our hearts are the sounds of your heartbeat, your desire for us, your jealousy for us, what you want to teach us, what you want to show us, your goodness. Only you can take barren, dark places and make it fruitful. Only you can make isolation sound enticing. God, because you are the only one that can make this right. You are the only one that can fix this, God. You are the only one that can change things. You are the only one that can help us fulfill our calling here. You are the only one. You are our creator. You created us. So you know your intentions. And you're the only opinion that matters. We just surrender to that. We just surrender ourselves to you, Jesus. Amen. So I just want to play a song, and I just want to end in worship like we've done before in the past. And I just want some reflection time. Just sit in his presence. It's called Your Presence is Heaven to Me. Just sit in his presence and just remember that isolation is divine intervention, and isolation is an invitation to intimacy. I am not the solution. If you want prayer, you can receive prayer. But the thing about Mike and I is that we don't have it twisted. We don't think we're the answer here. So let's just sit with God. You can worship. You can just listen to the song. You can journal. And it's just a couple minutes to end this service where we center our lives on Jesus, where we tell him it's okay if he wants to isolate us, where we tell him if he was the only one in the room, that's all we needed. Let's just experience his presence together.